Hello, thank you for listening to the podcast. My name is Euros. I'm here with Rain. How are you?
All good. How are you today?
I'm good. Today we're going to be talking about Thelma Polly Melton's case. It's a very strange case. Thelma was a 58-year-old woman. She went missing while on a hike with a couple of her friends in North Carolina. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a backstory about the case, and then we can kind of try to figure out what's happening here. So Thelma was born in Alabama on February 26th in 1923, and she was one of 6 children. When she grew up, she was reportedly a very friendly and intelligent and generous individual. She was also an avid hiker. She previously worked as a teacher. She was twice divorced with no children, and her third marriage was to a man named Robert Melton, who was actually 20 years her senior, and they married back in 1975. So since Thelma Polly Melton, she was 58 when she went missing back in 81. So I'm just kind of counting in my brain here. So she would have been 52 when she was married. And if the man that she was married with, Robert Melton, was 20 years her senior, so at 52, she married a 72-year-old guy. That's a bit of a age difference.
It is, but it's probably less weird if they were already adults. Still pretty weird though.
That's true. When you're in your 50s, I guess it makes sense more than when you're 20 and 40.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So she never had any kids, and this was her third marriage. So I think it's important to mention. So Robert and Thelma, they resided in Jacksonville, Florida, but they apparently spent each fall living in their Airstream trailer in North Carolina's Deep Creek campground near the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which is this really big national park in the Appalachian Trail. So it's on the east coast of America. There's a big national park. It's called the Smoky Mountains because apparently there's this smog that falls on top of the mountains. That's what they call them, the Smokies. Smoky
So
Mountains.
they were adventurers and nature lovers.
Yeah, so
Right.
I had to actually look up what an Airstream trailer is. So an Airstream trailer is these, I don't know, these, I have an image here, very distinctive trailers, and I've seen them in countless of movies. I didn't know that it's a particular brand of trailer. It's all metallic.
It looks so cool.
It
Kind of looks a little bit like a UFO spaceship thing.
yeah, UFO. So it's basically what they do. This company creates these types of trailers. So they had one, and
It looks really fancy.
it looks fancy. And they're expensive. I actually went on their website. Right now, the biggest one, the classic version, costs $200,000. So it's an apartment, basically.
Oh wow! So safe to say that Robert and Thelma were, they had money.
I don't know about money. It was never reported, and Thelma seems like she never did anything that lucrative. It's mentioned that she has been a teacher, but that's roughly it.
Oh, okay.
So they would spend each fall apparently in the Deep Creek campground in North Carolina, but they originally lived in Florida.
Did they
Jacksonville.
drive? Most likely, because they have a trailer.
Yes. So I believe Robert was driving. So Robert also had 2 adult sons from a previous marriage. So they both seem to have been divorced at some point in their lives, and they found each other back in 75. So when Polly disappeared, it's worth mentioning that they had been married for 6 years. And if Polly was 58 and Robert was 20 years her senior, and Robert was 78, Robert was really getting up there in age when Polly went missing. So I think that will potentially play a role later on. But I'll explain to you what I mean a little bit later. Polly was also a 2-pack a day smoker. So she was
2-pack a day.
Yeah, she was a religious smoker apparently, and she was also on medication for nausea and high blood pressure, which is not surprising. She was also no longer permitted to drive for undisclosed reasons.
Probably because of the nausea.
Yeah, probably because of the nausea, but I did find it interesting that she was no longer let to be driven.
And probably because of the high blood pressure.
Or there could be something
Something
even more bad, or maybe not. But I'm just thinking.
Health-wise or mentally?
I think health-wise. I don't think there's anything like mentally that was happening with her at that point. In North Carolina, when they would stay there, Polly would frequently volunteer at the Bryson City Presbyterian Nutrition Center. So this was I think like some sort of a church institution that helped the society. And she was apparently a very devout volunteer.
What did he do there? Because the way you mentioned the name, it sounds very...
I think it's like a food, like a food hall,
Oh.
like a food hall for like the people who don't have any money to eat.
Basically like a food bank.
Food bank, something like a food bank. So she would volunteer there, and as I understand, she would do it every day. But it was
wow.
but it was very strange because on the day when she went missing, she didn't sign up to volunteer. This was September 25th in 1981. It was a Friday, and it was mentioned that it was strange. Apparently, it was not her regular thing to do to not sign up for volunteer.
Isn't it potentially because they had some plans to go up the mountain? Some hiking?
She would still do it though. She would volunteer and then go.
So she never really missed the day. So that's what you're saying.
We have no idea what she was doing during the day. That's I feel like one of the big mysteries. What was Polly actually doing during the day, because she didn't go to volunteer. And she also made something she also did something strange as well. She apparently used the phone at the center the day before. So she used the phone to make some phone calls at those volunteer facilities. And apparently she had never done that before. So it's 1981. They don't have cell phones. So I'm thinking that maybe she's using that, I don't know, in order to potentially not have a phone call at home. So she might be potentially hiding something from Robert.
Oh, I never really considered that.
No, that's what I'm thinking about. So, nevertheless, even though she didn't sign up for volunteering that day, she still went hiking. And she would always go hiking with her two longtime friends, which were Trula Gudger, and let's refer to her as Trula.
I love the names.
Yeah, and then Pauline Red Cannon. So Red is her nickname. Pauline Cannon, but her nickname is Red. So let's just refer to them as Trula and Red.
So cool.
Yeah, cool names here. So before she left on the hike with Red and Trula on the 25th, she actually prepared spaghetti sauce for dinner that she intended to have with her, at that point, 6-year husband, Robert. Who seems like nothing's out of the ordinary here. But after she made the sauce, she left. And her intention was to meet Trula and Red, and they would all go and they would hike the Deep Creek Trail. So I tried looking into this Deep Creek Trail a little bit. Apparently it's like a moderate difficulty trail. It's worth mentioning that Polly had walked that trail a lot of times, like many times. So it's unlikely that she would get lost there. And also it wasn't in particular like a very dangerous trail, because it essentially looks like a gravel road. It doesn't look like it's more than a gravel road. It's like it's more like a park that like extends for a very long time. And so it's obviously in like the wilderness, but it's not like an extreme hiking scenario, which would make sense because Polly was 58.
Are there any animals in there?
Potentially, but it was never reported that could be a danger. What I'm saying is that Polly was also a 58-year-old woman with a habit of smoking 2 packs of cigarettes per day, and she had some sort of underlying health problems. So I don't think she would be, traversing that one if she was... she wouldn't be traversing like a very difficult trail.
She could have, but it's probably like she probably couldn't finish it or something.
Yeah, but this is where the kind of strange behavior began. So as they started walking, the three of them, for some reason, Polly started walking unusually slowly. And her friends, Trula and Red, were actually teasing her about it. I don't know exactly what they told her, but apparently they were like, oh, you're probably like really slow right now, Polly, what's happening with you? And they were teasing her a little bit. But just moments after that, she immediately starts speeding up and walks past Trula and Red.
Okay, immediately. Either she probably saw an animal or someone strange, or she got pissed at Red and Trula.
Maybe she didn't want to hear their
Yeah, maybe she didn't want to
comments.
be the slow walker of the group.
Well, she passed the two of them, and she was about 75 yards away, which would be 70 meters away in metric terms. And then she walked over a hill. So you could imagine she's like 70 meters away from the two other ladies.
Not that far though.
Not that far away.
Yeah.
She walks over a hill, and now Trula and Red, they also walk over that hill eventually, but Polly's not anywhere to be seen anymore. And Polly's never been seen ever again. This is how she went missing.
Interesting. I'm wondering about the timeline, you know. It's like she was 700 meters. 70 meters?
Not even 700. Yes, 70 meters.
Okay, that's even closer. How long did it take for them to get over that hill?
Yeah.
Did they like stop, took a break, or did they just walk right after Polly, and then she disappeared?
No, we don't know. This has never been explained.
Because if she was if Polly was 70 meters ahead of them, but then they took like, I don't know, an hour to get over that hill because maybe they were just chilling around, then it's kind of understandable that they would lose her. But if they were just walking right behind her and she immediately disappeared, then that's weird.
I think that it was like maybe somewhere in between, where it's like they probably also took unusually long, I guess, to go over that hill.
So it's not like, I don't know, 30 seconds for them to get over it.
You know, it was never really explained. I also found it pretty strange. Nevertheless, the two of them, they assumed that maybe Polly went back home to the camper, to the Airstream camper.
So they took a while.
Why?
They took a while to follow Polly. Because they assumed that she went back. So they weren't just behind her.
Well, they were behind her because at this point, they already had been hiking for 1 hour.
Oh.
And they were already returning.
Oh, okay, got it.
So they reached the end point, and now they were kind of looping back, returning back.
Okay.
So they just assumed that maybe Polly just kind of took off and sped away from them, and they assumed that, oh, maybe she went back to the camper, to the trailer. So they arrived at the trailer where Robert Melton was at, you know, the 6-year-old husband, at 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon. And Robert was shocked because Robert said, I haven't seen Polly ever since she left to go hike with you guys. Like, I don't know where she's at. So they went, I think first they waited for a half an hour for her to return. But when she didn't return, they started immediately searching the area. And by 6 p.m., they couldn't find her, and they reported her missing, and an intensive rescue and search for Polly began. The trail was closed to the public for 4 days in total, so it was a big search. And there was 150 searchers and 9 canine teams searching for Polly. So it was a huge search and rescue operation happening down there. There were no signs of a struggle or any indications that anyone had erratically left the path. So there was nothing suspicious on the path that was uncovered ever. The only clue that was found was some hits from a search dog who detected Polly's scent on a downed tree along the trail. It was assumed that maybe Polly had likely stopped to rest momentarily on that downed tree. We don't know exactly when. Was this during the first part of the hiking experience, or was this on the way back already? It was never explained. But apparently there was a hit on a downed tree. But that's it. Now, friends and family did not believe that she would leave the trail voluntarily, like walk off the path into the wilderness, because she was apparently very scared of snakes and it was not known for her to walk off the path. So she would not do this. Foul play was also not suspected because Polly was a 5'10", 180 pounds woman, and she wasn't the type of a woman that you could kidnap silently. Like you would make some noise or she would make some noise. So it would be noticed if someone actually kidnapped her. Law enforcement also believed that Polly was no longer at the park because the dogs would have picked up her scent by then. And let's move a little bit into the future. Now we're jumping to October 2nd of 1981. So let's remember that Polly went missing. I believe it was September 25th. Let me just confirm that I have my dates correct here. So yes, she left the home on September 25th, which was a Friday. Now let's move 7 days later, on October 2nd. Park officials told the press that evidence suggested that Polly had exited the park in a vehicle, probably of her own free will.
What?
Yeah, so 7 days into her disappearance, that's what was mentioned. And I think one of the reasons why it was mentioned is because the location, I think over that hill where she was last seen, is kind of close to a parking lot. So it could be that she met up with someone because she was not permitted to drive herself anymore for undisclosed reasons. So it seems like she met someone at the trail.
Or it was all planned.
It was all planned.
Yeah, someone was waiting for her in that parking lot.
And kidnapped her.
Not really kidnap her, probably.
Lured her into the car.
No, maybe she was planning to start a new life, and her could be a lover, could be anyone, was just waiting for her there. What do you think?
I think that's possible.
Right?
I have some additional information that came out as well. So most of her belongings were left behind. She had left her medication, her ID, her money, and her purse. The only items that she was known to have on her during the hike were a pack of cigarettes, her wedding ring, and the diamond-studded white gold wristwatch. That's the only things that she had on her. She was prescribed Valium as a muscle relaxant back in 1977. Have you heard about Valium?
No, not at all.
It's like this drug that apparently like helps your muscles to relax. It's also kind of used by people with anxiety disorders.
Even now?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a big thing even now. I actually tried to look into it a little bit. I think in America, Valium is quite popular, I would say. I mean, I don't know. I've never seen Valium here, but I think Valium is like a big thing in America. So it was regular stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So she was prescribed that in 1977, 4 years prior to her disappearance. And apparently to some sources, she was no longer taking it when she vanished. But apparently her husband was taking it at the time of her disappearance. But also the husband said that soon after Polly disappeared, he noticed that his Valium stash is also missing. So you would like kind of jump to the conclusion that maybe Polly snatched Robert's Valium like supplies. But then there are other sources that claim that actually Robert was never on Valium, and apparently it was Polly who still had that Valium prescription. So it's kind of hard to really gauge who was prescribed the Valium, but I think all sources align with each other on the fact that maybe Polly had access to Valium. And Valium, I tried looking at some Valium side effects and I couldn't really get a distinctive like clarification what exactly happens when you take Valium, but I think it gives like regular, maybe antidepressant type drug side effects. So maybe numbness and relaxedness and I don't know, things of that nature. So Robert actually was so distraught on the night when his wife went missing that he had to be hospitalized. So he really took it hard, the fact that his wife is now missing. And now I would like to also bring in a few other details about Polly and what may have caused her to go away on her own volition potentially. One of the biggest reasons why we would think that Polly had been not in the right mental state at the time of her disappearance was the fact that her mother, Luella, had passed away in 1977 at the same time when she had Valium prescribed to her. And apparently Polly suffered through a very dark period of depression after her mother passed away back 4 years prior to her own disappearance. And it's also stated that by 81 she was doing better. So allegedly she was already kind of over it a little bit, and she kind of came to terms with her mother passing by 81. Her friends Trula and Red actually came forward and reported another very interesting detail about a particular conversation that they had with Polly on the day when they were hiking together. So on the hike, they said that they had been teasing Polly about a particular man at the Bryson City Presbyterian Church Nutrition Center where she volunteered, saying that that particular man was clearly interested in Polly. So they were teasing about a man who allegedly was in the volunteer center and he was interested in Polly. Now, allegedly Polly didn't deny this. She believed that this man did have a thing for her, according to her friends, but she did not want to speak further about it. So they were that was also mentioned for some reason.
And was this guy ever interviewed? And I don't know, did he ever step forward and ask, like, what happened to her?
So this is something that I would also like to know, but it's never been mentioned who this man even was.
I mean, it's easy to track this guy.
No, I think authorities know. Just not us.
Okay.
I think authorities definitely know, and obviously this guy looks like a person of interest.
Definitely.
Right? Now, another interesting detail came out here when Tom Harris,
Who is Tom Harris?
a pastor
Oh.
at the church that Polly was attending, stated that he had reason to believe that Polly was having an affair. However, he didn't elaborate on what made him think this way. Additionally, he said that Polly had seemed sad recently, but not in a way that she would commit self-harm. So we have a pastor who's basically confirming a affair.
That's what I've been sensing, actually, in the beginning of the story when you told the whole thing. Like, the little things that happened prior her disappearance, maybe those were nothing. Like, if she didn't disappear, it would just be like a random thing that happened. But the fact that she did, it's kind of weird. Like, the phone calls in the church instead of at home, which I never did before. And I don't know.
Trying to hide something from Robert.
Yeah, it just seems weird.
Polly's father, Fred, with whom she had grown close after her mother had passed away, apparently had visited Polly that same month when she went missing in September. And he didn't say that there was anything unusual with his daughter. Her behavior and mood seemed very normal to him. So if Polly was going through something, she hid it from her father, Fred. On April 14th, back in 1982, so this is 6 months after she went missing, or around 6 months when she went missing, something bizarre had happened. A check made out to Polly for the interest on a bank certificate was actually cashed at the Birmingham Trust National Bank in Birmingham, Alabama, where some of Polly's family lived. Unfortunately, the bank teller had no recollection of the person who cashed that particular check and could not provide any description on that individual. But this detail, to some, basically corroborates suspicions that Polly ran away and was still alive 6 months into her disappearance. Because, as I understand, only Polly could cash out that bank certificate. Unless it could be maybe some members from Birmingham, Alabama, her family members from Birmingham, Alabama, that maybe somehow also gained access to cash out the check. But this is the most concrete detail indicating that Polly was potentially still alive, like literally half a year later.
Wait, so sorry. I just want to ask, like, the family members were not interviewed about this?
I think everyone was.
It's just not in public. It was just not a public information.
I think everyone was. I think law enforcement
Definitely did. Come on.
I would assume they did talk to everyone. We just don't know.
But the fact that this case remains unsolved, that means the interviews were inconclusive. It was like
Yeah.
So it was definitely Polly.
I don't know. It wasn't like confirmed that it was Polly.
I mean, I'm kind of convinced that it was her. What about you? What do you think?
I think it's a huge chance.
Right?
But I wouldn't say that I'm like sold on it.
Mm-hmm.
A year after Polly's disappearance, her husband Robert sold the Airstream tailor and completely cut ties with North Carolina. I think he just went back to Florida and never came back. Numerous eyewitnesses apparently reported seeing a woman matching Polly's description. They've seen her in Florida, and they also seen her in Alabama, as well as other states. But none of these sightings were substantiated. But it's interesting that she's been spotted in Florida and Alabama because she had connections to both of them. In Florida, she had already been living for at least 6 years, according to what we know. And in Alabama, she had family members. And she even, or someone, cashed out a check in her name. So it's kind of strange. Maybe some of those sightings actually were of Polly. And after going through all of the sources that I could find online, I was able to piece additional information to kind of finish off the details here. So we know that Polly went missing 1 mile into the park, into the trail, and apparently it was like a gravel road type of a location. She was very familiar with the trail, and it seems impossible that she would just be lost there. The terrain itself, it just seemed like there was no way she's getting lost there. Like she voluntarily disappears. We also know that Polly had no job at the time of her disappearance. She was not employed. Well, she was 58. Maybe she was already retired. She would also never walk alone due to her fragile health. And this could indicate why she tagged along with Red and Trula that day, because maybe she was scared to go alone. And that's pretty much it. These are the details that I have on Polly Melton's disappearance. A very strange, bizarre disappearance in a trail. You know, it's like one of these cases that we talked about, Barbara's case a couple of episodes ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was also strange how she went missing.
She just vanished.
But I think in Barbara's case, I think we agreed that it's probably Jim.
Yeah, it was more on the...
Yeah. Jim Ramaker.
Potential, like...
Jim Ramaker, yeah.
Abduction, murder.
I think Jim Ramaker... Yeah, I'm just somehow finding him very suspicious in that case. But in this case...
Seems like it was intentional.
I think that it's also very bizarre.
Yeah, it is. But I don't know, it just seems to me like it was a runaway so far with all of the information.
Do you think that if Polly left by car, as law enforcement suggested, why do you think no one heard the car? And why would she pick this very random and awkward time to start a new life while leaving most of her personal belongings back home? And why would she disappear on a hike with friends when so many things could go not according to plan? If she planned to run away on a hike with a couple of friends, why would she just assume that everything's just gonna work out perfectly? Doesn't this seem a little too perfect?
I mean, it did though.
But doesn't it seem a little too perfect for a 58-year-old 2-pack-a-day smoker to just kind of like make everything happen so nicely? And why would she leave her personal belongings? The only explanation would be that maybe she was trying to make it seem like an accident.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't know. For me, the fact that she's been on that trail multiple times and she probably knows the ins and outs. And where the parking lot is, like which way is the shortcut to where, I think it plays a big part.
Mm-hmm.
So she could easily like run away from everyone.
If she managed to start a new life, as you kind of suspect here, how did she stay under the radar for so long?
That, I don't know. I have no explanation. And there were multiple sightings of her both in Florida and Alabama, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
I don't know, like maybe she started a new life in another state. But then again, there were multiple sightings of her.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I don't know. It seems to me that something. If she started a new life, something makes me think that she didn't survive, and something bad happened really soon.
Really?
I mean, how would you stay under the radar
That's true.
without? No, I think I'm just assuming that something bad happened to Polly, and that she didn't just end up living for like 20 years with a new identity. I just don't think that would happen. Do you think that she met with someone that she started a new life with on that day?
Maybe not on that day. Maybe one of the men she already knew prior. It just seemed well planned, well executed, actually.
Do you think that Trula and Red should have been considered suspects?
No.
No?
No.
It didn't seem that way, right?
It didn't seem that way. They seem like very real friends of Polly. And I don't know, I just remember when you mentioned that at one point they were teasing her because she was walking really slowly.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
that's what they
that's
what they said.
That's true.
We don't know exactly what happened.
I mean, I bet they were interviewed and they were cleared.
You think these ladies would crack under the pressure?
Oh yeah, definitely.
But do you find it strange that they weren't immediately worried about Polly being like not on the trail? Did they just kind of walk to the campground and waited for like a half an hour?
I'm picturing a scenario wherein they probably like teased her so much that she may have looked pissed at one point and just started walking back way ahead of them, and maybe they were like, oh okay, we could just meet her at the trailer or something.
I was also thinking, do you think there's a chance that maybe the both of them actually helped her arrange? Because it seems so strange how Polly just kind of vanishes, just being 70 meters away from the two other women. But maybe the two other women are in on it. They helped her disappear, but now they won't come forward because they know they will be under legal issues. Maybe they helped her go away, but they didn't hear from her afterwards, and now they assume that Polly's dead. And if they tell the truth, they will all be in legal problems.
Or maybe they did it actually.
Or maybe
now I'm thinking about it. They could have done it because everything was
so perfect.
Yeah, but then who cashed out the money?
I think, I don't know. This is where maybe some of the listeners could kind of come in. When there's like a bank certificate issued to a certain person who realistically could go to a branch.
Immediate family?
Yeah, like, could they do it? Because it would make sense if it was someone from her family, because she did have family in Birmingham, Alabama.
No, but it has to be someone immediate. So maybe kids, husband, that's it, no?
Maybe they pretended to be Polly. They cashed it out, and now they didn't come forward because that money didn't belong to them, but they didn't want to give away the money.
Or maybe there was a letter from Polly way before that says she's allowing them to withdraw some cash for her.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Yeah, I would like to hear someone with a little bit more like experience with this, like checks in America.
Are we sure it's not like a joint account or something? It was just hers.
I don't know.
It could have been like she was sharing it with someone.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, it could have been that way.
Or maybe banks back then weren't as strict as they are right now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's easier to withdraw cash for someone else back then.
Mm-hmm. So I'm also thinking, Polly, she had no children, and she already had been on her third marriage. So, having a new husband and divorcing someone wasn't that difficult for her. It seems like she did it a few times, right, at that point. And Robert, he seems like he had some health problems. I don't know why he was not hiking with him. And he was 78 at that point. So do you think that maybe since, she didn't have that much attachment to a certain situation, there's a higher chance that she would like...
Yes, if you're trying to imply that
start something new.
Yeah, start something new with her new lover, I would think that's a huge possibility, yeah.
Yeah. I was also thinking, she wasn't permitted to drive. Is there a chance that maybe she had a deeper and a worse health condition that only she knew about? Maybe it was, I don't know, terminal, and it was going bad, and she didn't want anyone to know.
Potentially, yeah.
And then she just...
Because honestly, my dad is also a chain smoker, and he's not as bad as Polly. He only smokes like one pack, but still, it's pretty bad.
Still pretty bad.
He has always been a chain smoker, and he also has high blood pressure, and he has to take medicines for it.
Yeah.
Multiple. And he still drives. He's still like functioning like a normal person.
Yeah.
So it's definitely nothing connected to those. Why couldn't she drive anymore? That's what I'm thinking. Like, why?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe she had something bigger or worse. Right?
Could be something mental, psychological.
Do you think it's strange that Robert cut ties with North Carolina immediately? And do you think that Robert could somehow be, I don't know, involved here?
Honestly, no. Mainly because he was hospitalized.
Because what if, he was hospitalized that same day, but, because, what if Polly did go back to the trailer?
And the friends were covering up for Robert?
No, maybe Robert, I don't know.
Could be, actually.
Somehow hid the whole thing.
Nah, he's too old to like...
Yeah, I also think it's a little bit too old.
He's a little too old to run and hide past 3 women and just like abduct a 5 foot 10 younger lady.
Okay, I'm also thinking that, Polly had, she had her mother who had passed away 4 years prior, and she was in a bad mental state. Do you think that still spilled over 4 years later and made her commit some self-harm, potentially?
I wouldn't even... Yeah, I would consider this mainly because, grief works in weird ways. One time you're okay, and next thing you know, you're crying over, like, soup that your mom used to make. Maybe there's a potential that it happened to her. Possibility, yeah. But the thing is, where was her body? If she did it in the trail, where was her body, and why was it never located?
So they say that she left with a car, most likely.
And then she proceeded in committing self-harm.
That's true. Probably not.
Because it's like, where is the body? It seems like a straightforward theory. And if she actually did it, we would have found her body or something. Somewhere within the area or something.
You know, I also found it strange that right before she left on the trail, she made spaghetti sauce. Was it all a decoy?
Could be. Like, to make things seem
make
normal.
it seem normal. Yeah, I leave all my personal belongings. I don't indicate that I'm gonna leave, but the pastor says that she had an affair. She was making strange phone calls. She was teased by her friends about someone like who clearly liked her at the volunteer facilities. And she vanished from a place that's close to a parking lot. I mean, to me, it just screams she got into a vehicle with someone else and she got out of the trail. And then I think that she was murdered.
You think so?
I think she got into a car with someone, and after she got into the car with someone, I think she was murdered.
And hid. And the body was hid.
Oh yeah, it could be anywhere now. I think she was murdered by someone who somehow tricked her to go with that person, and then they murdered her. That's my opinion, if I had to bet.
I would like to go to the more like positive route here. And I think she just started a new life in some other state. Maybe
And hid under the radar.
it's another state. What if it's like on the other side of America?
I guess.
Isn't it easier to like start a new identity and start a new life there?
Polly just didn't seem like
The kind of
she had the juice anymore. Like, she was 58.
Oh, come on. She was 58. She had 3 marriages and she just probably wants to live life.
Yeah.
Chain smoker. I immediately, like, her as a chain smoker immediately gives me a vibe of, like, cool vibe. Or, like, a cool older lady. I'm not saying cigarettes are cool. I'm just saying, like, you know.
Like she had a little bit of like a
Edge.
like a backbone.
Yeah, like a bad girl.
Like
Edgy.
like I can take care of myself. Like.
Like a strong, independent woman.
I could see that happening. I still think that she was murdered. That's just my conclusion. But yeah, so that was, we discussed Polly's case.
Oh, one more second.
Of course.
Sorry. It's pretty funny because I always, when you started talking about this case and you mentioned that she had 3 marriages,
Yeah.
chain smoker, immediately had this like picture in my head. She's a cooler, edgier lady with a raspy voice. You know what I mean?
And now you looked at her pictures.
Yeah, and look at her pictures. She looks like the nicest grandmother of all time. Like, who would bake you cookies.
She was 58 though, but she looked quite a bit older.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people commented, that maybe those 2 packs of cigarettes really didn't
I think so, yeah.
didn't do like good for the health. You know what I'm saying?
But she looks like the sweetest grandmother of all time.
Yeah,
Would
she looks
get
like a
you
sweet-
cookies.
Yeah.
Right?
From the picture, I agree.
Or like a school teacher.
She was a teacher
Oh.
at some point. So that's it for Polly's case. You think that she potentially started a new life? I'm thinking
Yes.
that she tried to start a new life, but someone killed her along the way.
I think, yeah, she either successfully started a new life with her lover, potentially, or Red and... what's her name again?
Trula
Trula did something sinister
killed her.
on the trail, yeah, and managed to hide her. Well, but then again, these are older ladies. How would they be able to hide a body from the police and canines?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe there was a car in there and they drove her.
No, that's a good point. I actually don't suspect Trula and Red anymore. Because I feel like if they did it,
How did they did it successfully?
yeah, and I feel like they were scrutinized by law enforcement. They were interviewed and questioned, and they didn't crack. So I think they're good.
And I think Robert is also a little bit on the older side to do something super complex.
Yeah, true. I think she left of her own volition, but then I think something bad happened. All right, so that's it. Thank you guys for listening to our podcast. We will talk to you later with some more cases.
Bye.
Bye.